Before you start your life group, I want to give you some information about what's coming on Sunday, November 11th. Sunday, November 11th is going to be an amazing day at OU, and I want you to be a part of it. We'll have all three of our regular worship services that morning at 8:45, 9, and 10:55. In those services, we're going to talk about our dreams, the dreams that God is birthing in us, and how we're going to begin to move forward towards those dreams. We'll celebrate communion together, and we'll share our commitments to the Engaging Together capital campaign. Then at 10 o'clock, we're going to celebrate. We're going to meet in Wesley Hall for food. We're going to have time together. Our children will be in the activity center to work on an art project. That art project in the years ahead will welcome people to our new children's area. And then at 10:30, we're going to gather in the atrium to pray together and to sing together. You know, we're in 3 different worship services, so many different Sunday school classes and small groups. We're spread out in so many amazing ways that moment will be our moment to remember that we are one church, called together by the grace of Jesus Christ. And in that one moment, we'll remember that we're to engage the mission of Jesus Christ together. I hope you'll be there. I hope you'll join us for the great morning, Sunday, November 11th. Now back to your life group. During this life group series, we're talking through Tish Warren's book, Liturgy of the Ordinary. It's an invitation to see all of the regular, mundane, boring moments of life as moments when God can work in us and through us. And so far in this series, we've talked about that moment of waking up and realizing our humanness. Last time we talked about what it means to have habits and how we embody habits that really help us engage what God is doing in our life and in our world. And in this session, we want to talk about our bodies, these things that we've been given, the things that we walk around in and bump into things with. Here's what I know. When I turned 30, somebody told me, it's going to take you a lot longer for things to heal. But then when I turned 40, this is what my same friend told me. When you turn 40, things break for no reason. And that's turned out to be true. Our bodies, we know, are frail. They require a lot of work. But what do we really believe? What do Christians really believe about this body that God has given to us? I find that most people fall at one end or the other of a spectrum. On one end, you have people, even some Christians, who think, well, this body is just a shell. It doesn't matter how we treat it. It doesn't matter what happens to it because we're going to go and be with Jesus one day anyway. So it doesn't matter what you eat. It doesn't matter if you care for it or work out. It's just a shell. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you have people who worship their bodies, who spend a lot of money and time and effort to make sure that their bodies look the best that they can, that they look exactly like they want it to look. In fact, I would say in our culture today, we have many people who worship their bodies. We see that every single day online. We see it in the news. We see it in the shows that we watch. People worshiping their body. So what do we say as followers of Jesus about these bodies, this flesh that we've been given? Here's what we find in Scripture. We have an embodied faith. In other words, what we believe is that God has specifically and intentionally given us these bodies. We believe that God created this body for us. We believe that these bodies bear the image of God. That's what we're taught back in the book of Genesis. But not just that. When we think about Jesus coming to redeem and save, Jesus didn't just float around teaching. According to Philippians chapter 2, Jesus took on the flesh. Jesus became fully and completely human. Jesus redeemed and saved us through this flesh and in our bodies. In fact, we have a word for that, a theological word for that. It's called incarnation, that Jesus came into the flesh. And so what that means for us is that these bodies matter. How we use them, how we understand them, how we treat them, it matters because all of our flesh, all of our bodies have been redeemed as a part of the redemption of all of creation. And so I think that offers to us maybe a couple of things, a couple of ways we can think about that. One is it calls us to gratitude, to thankfulness for this gift that we've been given. We've been given these eyes to see the glories of the world. We've been given the ability to move around, to see, to go different places. We've been given the ability to taste and to touch, to feel. All of that is God's good gift to us. And I think it calls us to gratitude. Even as we age, even as our eyesight fades, even as the different aches and broken bones and things come to be, we're still called to have gratitude for the great gift that God has given to us. But I think the second thing that it calls us to with this understanding of our bodies is that we're called to use our bodies for worship. Not just on Sundays, but each and every day, to understand that in our work and in our play, the ways that we treat people, the ways that we speak to others, those are ways in which we worship God. We can worship God when we put our arms around someone who's hurting. We can worship God with our bodies when we use our mouths and our tongues to lift someone up and encourage them. We can worship God in those moments when we move to someone, when we travel to someone, to make sure that they get to experience God's love. Our bodies are God's gift of worship. They allow us to worship God. In Romans chapter 12, verse 1, Paul says that we are to use our bodies as living sacrifices. And I think what Paul is trying to get across to us there is that everything that we do, every way we treat our body, every way that we utilize the gift of this, is a way that we can be a part of what God is doing in the world. So think about it for a moment. What are the ways that you use your body to worship day in and day out? When I was a child, we'd go to my grandmother's house in South Louisiana, and I'd run up and down the hallways. And one night, as I was running down the hallway, I ran into the den where my grandmother had been watching TV. And I found that she was kneeling in front of her recliner, and her mouth was moving, but she wasn't making any sound. Her eyes were closed. And so I ran up to her and I asked, "Mawsy, what's wrong? Is something wrong with you?" She grabbed her arm, pulled me beside her, and drew me into her time of prayer, where she was praying for my family and all of my cousins. She was praying for her daughters and their husbands. She was praying for her church and the world. She had knelt using her body, all of who she was, to worship. So here's my challenge for you. Maybe in the next day or two, become aware of the ways that you are using your body to worship. We all worship someone or something. How are you using your body to worship God? Through the work of your hands, where your feet take you, the words of your mouth. Maybe it's time for us to understand that what we have been given is God's gift to worship God with every single day.